Now, stop bashing Mac and Apple people. Let's get to the actual language itself.
All right.
Now let's talk about some of the prerequisites that are required in order for you to follow this course.
Yes.
The first one, Brian, are the previous WiBit.net tutorials.
Right. Like C.
Right.
Intro to programming as well. Intro to object-oriented programming is crucial. C++, a definite.
Absolutely.
You also want to have a familiarity with the Mac operating system. It's a pretty intuitive operating system, so it won't take you long, but just make sure that you just put in some time with it and get familiar with it so you know how to do the basics of navigating.
Right. A basic understanding of Unix is preferred because we're going to be doing some stuff on the back end in the beginning.
Yeah.
And if you don't know Unix very well, because as you guys know, well, as you developers know, Mac OS X is built on top of a variant of Unix called BSD Darwin, and we're going to be running stuff on the shell. And if you don't know it very well, you can pretty much just follow along with us. And there's also a syntactic thing that's kind of familiar to another language that we're familiar with, Brian.
Yeah, tool command language.
Yeah. So if you have any experience with TCL and its structure and the way that it, instantiates
it'll
things,
probably kind of help you.
It'll kind of feed into this because it's not the same at all as like C++.
Right. So fundamentally, this is based on the C language. Even if it looks a little different, just keep in mind that everything you've learned in that C series, it is based on C.
It's relevant, 100%.
It is. And just like we were saying before, just like C++, it's a bolt-on object-oriented programming language. So instead of C with classes, this is object-oriented C. And many of the data types are inherited from a master object. So and these are all, so we were talking about how it's designed to be kind of extendable. And so in C++, for example, like a lot of the different data types are kind of their own thing.
Yeah.
In Objective-C, they all kind of come from this master object, this master generic object called NS object.
Right.
And so any kind of object that you want to make, any kind of class you want to define and instantiate objects in, generally will come from an extension of an NS object.
Yes, that's kind of how the lineage draws out.
Right. So you're always kind of doing this inheritance tree.
And for those of you that are proactive, NSObject.h and NSObject.m are open, so you can actually view the source code of these.
And see what that core...
Yes, you can see how it functions, and also you can see the reason why they designed this, so that when you create your own objects, you're bringing in all of the thought that was put into objects in general by the next group when they were putting together the next step library.
It's pretty sexy.
And as we progress through this, you're going to really appreciate the structure, and then as we move on to other languages that use this concept, like Java and C#, you're going to really start to see, wow, this is the way to go. This is it.
That's awesome.
So source code files in Objective-C usually have a .m extension. There's also a variant of Objective-C called Objective-C++, which we're not going to get into, but those use the .mm extension. That's how you would know the difference.
And the .m extension is often considered for the implementation files.
Right.
Also known as the
implementation files.
Yes.
Which we'll get into that. So we'll be using that for our base driver code and for our implementation code.
Yep. The objects use a header and an implementation, just like we've been doing over and over and over and over. Like old hat, you're used to that. No big deal.
Yes.
And memory management, for all intents and purposes, we're just going to say is pretty much manual.
Yes.
As far as you're concerned, memory management is manual.
And that's the method that we're going to be teaching, but we're also going to be showing you other concepts such as auto-release, which are going to be coming up later on.
But just kind of consider it to be a manual.
So some more of the fundamentals. Brian mentioned the NS object. So this is the root class of the next step library, which is also from the GNU step, whatever. So like Brian said, all objects inherit from this, and it provides the basic functionality for the object's behavior within the execution of a program.
Then there's the foundation framework. And the framework is kind of like when we were in C++ and we were showing like the class that would wrap a string, or like the WiBit string, or like the WiBit integer and stuff like that. Those conveniently reusable classes all put together in a giant library, you can kind of think of as like a framework. It's just a well-organized series of reusable libraries and classes that kind of abstract your level of programming. So when we were doing it in C++ and we were kind of starting out at that lower level, by the end we were just saying like, oh, this dot that is that, and that's set to that, and it became very simple. So that's what that foundation framework is to do, is to kind of pop you up a layer of abstraction. And that just defines a layer on top of Objective-C that includes, the primitive object class, which is classes that are all based on, everything is going to be based on the NS objects.
Yeah, what Brian mentioned something that's important, but I'm going to add to it. Brian said that these classes are all reusable. I'm also going to add they are also extendable.
Right.
And they're designed to be extendable.
Particularly in this language, yes.
Yes.